Welcome to the SVG-TV news for Thursday, April 29th. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, earlier today issued a flooding and landslide alert after heavy rains from last night into today drenched mainland St. Vincent, with more rainfall expected over the next 24 hours. In its advisory, NEMO also noted that the volcano red zone can be impacted by mudflows as ash deposits are thickest in these areas, and the absence of trees means that all of the material will find its way down the valleys. NEMO said they received flooding reports and there should be several reports of flooding and landslides in and around Kingstown and its surroundings, as well as in other areas prone to landslides and flooding. The public is asked to exercise caution, especially persons living near rivers and streams and in areas prone to landslides, as floodwaters are dangerous and can result in loss of life and property. To be safe, persons are asked to avoid sightseeing and stay off the roads as far as possible. Avoid walking, playing, and swimming in floodwaters. Stay indoors until the floodwaters recede. Avoid crossing rivers and streams and stay away from riverbanks and heavy gutters. And parents should monitor and ensure their children's safety. NEMO can be contacted at 458-6366 or the hotline 526-3000 to report all incidents related to this ongoing hazard. Meanwhile, the local meteorological office says unstable conditions being enhanced by a favorable upper-level atmosphere continue to affect much of the region, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This, the Met Office said, has resulted in cloudy to overcast conditions with moderate to heavy showers, periods of rain and thunderstorms, especially over the southern, eastern, and northeastern areas of mainland St. Vincent from early morning hours. The Met Office further noted that rainfall accumulations ranging from 75 to 125 millimeters, or 3 to 5 inches, have already occurred over some parts of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and a further 50 millimeters, or 2 inches, with higher isolated amounts are possible across the island over the next 24 hours, after which a gradual improvement can be expected. It said the weather advisory remains in effect, and residents and motorists are urged to exercise extreme caution in areas prone to flooding and landslides or near rivers and streams. The Met Office is urging residents to be alert for possible impacts resulting from rain-soaked ash. In addition, residents, especially in the yellow, orange, and red zones, should avoid areas within the vicinity of rivers due to destructive mudflows or lahars. Meanwhile, seismologist Dr. Roderick Stewart says that there was no eruption at La Soufrière this morning and that the sounds persons were hearing were from lahars or mudflows associated with the heavy rainfalls. Providing the daily update on NBC Radio earlier today, Dr. Stewart said that the volcano remains quiet with fewer seismic activities. He, however, noted that there were signals of lahars or mudflows from several locations.
Yeah, if people heard noises, and we heard noises here as well at Belmont, it is actually the lahars going on and thunder and lightning associated with the rain. The lahars consist of a lot of material in the water. Richard Robertson is currently down in Richmond having a look at these, and it brings trees down with it. And the amount of material that is being brought down, anytime the lahar goes round a bend or goes over some topography, it will make thumping noises, basically, and these can be heard quite a long way away. So people would have heard either the lahars themselves, or they would have heard thunder and lightning from the heavy rainfall.
The seismologist said that the mudflows will continue to be a danger to persons in the red and orange zones once the heavy rainfalls continue.
It really depends on the rainfall. I'm not a meteorologist. I was having a quick look at the radar, and there's still a lot of rain around. But we will have lahars as long as we have the heavy rainfall. And then there will also be flooding. I mean, it takes quite a while for the water to come off the mountain. So I suspect we're going to have the effects of flooding for much of the day today. So, people are going to be very wary of this. How big these rainy seasons are. So that's something that we are going to have to learn to live with and to protect against. Lahars are fairly simple to protect against because if you're going to have heavy rainfall, you should expect lahars, and you basically know which valleys they're going to take place in. And having that information, you can be prepared for it.
Dr. Stewart also noted that though the volcano is quiet, it is still being monitored closely for any unexpected activities.
In this period, as I said at the beginning, the volcano is quiet. We're watching very closely for any signs of it reawakening. It does seem to be going back. I won't say to sleep yet, because that's a bit too hopeful, but it does seem to be quietening down. And we're watching very careful for any reversal of that. So we'll be using all our equipment. I suspect we will use the opportunity in the next few weeks to install some new equipment that was replacing some of the stuff that was destroyed in the eruption, and watching closely to see if anything indicates a restart of activity. That's really our major task in the coming months, I hope.
The volcano alert level remains at red. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said that though the volcanic eruption hasn't caused any deaths in the country, and the mud flows and landslides are equally dangerous, and urged persons in the danger zones to be very vigilant and careful.
And people have to be very vigilant, very careful, very, very careful. We have been talking about it. It's only when it's happened that it sinks into people. The consequence of the volcano, the eruptions now combined with the rainy season, it's very dangerous, extremely dangerous. The scientists tell us that, and the real world is also telling us.
The heavy rains have caused damage to a number of houses in the Kingstown area. In a telephone interview with SVG-TV News, area representative for East Kingstown, Fitzgerald Bramble, says 2 families are now homeless following significant landslides in Rockies and Murray's Village.
I visited the Rockies area this morning. There's a lot of damage up there, different kinds of slippages and back walls falling in and stuff like that. But the most serious ones, 2 houses are totally gone. They're just destroyed. Everybody's concerned. I mean, even the strong, what I call the soldiers, in the constituency, everybody's worried because these are challenges which you don't face every day. The families in particular, Ian Edwards and his family, they lost their house. And Dexter Lewis and his family, they lost their house as well.
Bramble described the atmosphere he encountered when meeting with the families shortly after they had lost everything. He also shared what he has since he has since spoken with Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves on the matter.
It was really heart-wrenching. I mean, you can see the emotion. Family members were crying. But it was really good to see the entire community coming out and supporting in whatever way possible. I have been in touch with Prime Minister Gonsalves as Minister of National Security and responsible for natural disasters and so on. I spoke with him, and he's put things in place to make sure that the families are taken care of. I don't want to divulge too much detail per se, except to say that the Prime Minister gave me his assurance that the government would take care of those 2 families.
The East Kingstown representative also took time to encourage his constituents and Vincentians at large to remain on their guard as the island continues to battle the effects of Mother Nature.
I'm planning to go up to Longwall. I heard there's some reports of boulders up in Tongue Hill by the Bishong's residents up in that area as well. I've had reports of slippages and movement in Walvaroo and in Mala Village, and I'm quite sure they're in Frenches as well. So I'm quite sure all throughout the constituency you're going to have those things happening. We have to brace ourselves for more accidents and more incidents, taking place. And it doesn't seem like the rain is going to let up anytime soon either. So what I would advise and what I would recommend and encourage everybody, not just in East Kingstown, is just to be vigilant, to watch if there are any measures you can take to mitigate against any back wall falling in or what have you. Anything that you can do to avoid, prevent, and to stay safe, make sure that you do that. And look out for your neighbors as well, especially the elderly and the shut-ins. Let's look out for them and see how we can help.
One of the affected homeowners is Dexter Lewis, who said he had just a few seconds to save his family before his home of 40 years slipped away before his eyes in an unexpected landslide. The father of 4 said at first he assumed his children were playing noisily and that upon investigation he discovered the troubling sight of the land on which his home was grounded separating from the hillside.
Well, I woke up about 4:30, had myself a cup of coffee, So I decided now we're going to clean up the kitchen and whatever. Children also was up, just my biggest daughter, she was still sleeping. So while I'm in the kitchen, clean up, I hear a bang on the house. So I thought the children was playing. So I said, listen, too early, I'll go back in all their bed. So I went back, washing. Then when I look outside the window, I see a small slide top side of the house. It's a small slide. So I figured that was the banger here in the house. So washing. Then I see blood start popping, and the top of up they start skinning over. I said, nah, something ain't right. So I took the children was up, carried them down in that part of the house where the toilet and the bath is. When I came back up, I see cracks start to get bigger. So I decided, what happened? Nah, this ain't right. So I went, woke up my daughter, and we all went down there. There's a back door over there, and the minute we come out and step on the bank there, the whole thing just come down and the whole house just go.
Lewis, who was still visibly in shock, says while they were not able to save anything but their lives, when asked about his plans for the future, the eerily calm Lewis responded that he had not yet begun to process the fact that he and his family are now homeless.
This present time, I didn't even think about that, I getting across to that. I'm just trying to come to terms with the grip that the house is gone. My children are safe, and from there I try to walk myself through. But I have to calm down a bit and, try to focus. Well, honestly, it's like it ain't happened. Because I still ain't believe that, I'm homeless. Because there's no anger, there's no vexation, there's no sorry, there's nothing in me right now. As you can see, I lost everything. So any help that I can give from people to rebuild, get some clothes and get whatever for my kids and myself, I'll be very grateful.
And how can people reach out to you?
Well, my number, call me by my number, that's 526-6497. And I'll be grateful for anybody who can, assist me.
And the Central Water and Sewerage Authority has reported that the heavy rainfalls across the island have not affected its ability to supply clean water to Vincentians thus far. This is according to the CWSA's Public Relations and Marketing Manager, Joan Ryan. Ryan said the CWSA's engineers have made their preliminary assessments and have reported that none of their systems have been affected.
Well, we just want to report that the heavy rains that we have been experiencing all day have not in any way impeded our ability to supply water to our customers. So the systems are up and running, and we continue to monitor, obviously, just to ensure that we are able to supply our customers to the very best of our ability.
Ryan also noted that despite the CWSA's ability to keep water in taps across the island at the moment, persons should maintain adequate water storage at home.
We are going through a bit of a challenging time in St. Vincent, and there are so many stresses with having to deal with dengue and COVID and the eruption. And in the midst of all of that, it's a little bit drier than normal, barring the rains that came today. And so soon we are going to be going into the hurricane season. We really want to encourage persons to have adequate storage for water at home. We are going to do everything we can to ensure that water gets into your tap. But this is not a time for us to be complacent and to think that it is going to be there 24/7. Because when something happens, if there's a landslide somewhere, if a line is burst and the water is disrupted, then obviously it can't go into your tap. But if you have storage capacity at home, when you do have the water, you store. And so if water is out in your area, you are not as pressed. At least you have some water for a day or two.
Leader of the opposition, Dr. Godwin Friday, has stated that based on his interaction with some evacuees at shelters and people still in the red zone and orange zone, they are not pleased with the emergency response and do not trust the government for many reasons. Speaking at a news conference yesterday, Dr. Friday said that he has visited as far as Sandy Bay on the windward side and as far as Chateaubelair on the leeward side, and persons have been complaining to him about their experiences.
The distrust is manifest, it has shown itself recently in this crisis through the concerns that have been raised by many people about the use or misuse of resources collected by governmental agencies in response to the eruption of La Soufrière.
In regards to meeting the needs of all evacuees, Dr. Friday says from his understanding, while some persons are receiving help, others are not. And this does not speak well of the operations on the ground 2 weeks after the volcano has erupted.
And reports about the failure to provide foodstuff, basic things, beds, clothing for evacuees. Nearly 3 weeks after their evacuation, they still have not received food packages in some areas, in some instances, from NEMO or other governmental authority, and must rely on private donations for their basic supplies.
The opposition leader also expressed concern with the way in which he said persons are being coerced to be vaccinated.
It is also clear in the reluctance among our people, despite the obvious utility and the urgings and enticements and even threats from representatives of government, they are reluctant to be vaccinated against the COVID-19 disease. And this again is because they do not place their trust in the government that advocates and recommends vaccination.
Dr. Friday said it is important to have the concerns raised addressed soonest and encouraged persons to continue to provide humanitarian aid to those who need it. In a show of solidarity for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the governments of Jamaica and the Bahamas joined forces to bring relief supplies to the country. This partnership, which took place on Tuesday, saw the Bahamian Defense Force vessel, the HMBS Lawrence Major, facilitating the shipment of relief supplies from Jamaica. Minister of Agriculture Saboto Caesar, along with Minister of Tourism Carlos James, and Honorary Consul of Jamaica to SVG Maureen Williams were present to welcome the contingent and accept the various donations. Minister Caesar used the opportunity to thank the government and people of the Bahamas for the use of their vessel and extended gratitude to the government and people of Jamaica for their hard work and assistance. The commanding officer of the HMBS Lawrence Major, Omar Saunders, said it was a pleasure and a privilege to assist in any way they can in the recovery efforts. Minister James said the relief items will benefit displaced persons from North Leeward and Windward who are most adversely affected from the volcanic eruptions. Minister James issued a call for continued solidarity from regional counterparts. The items donated include portable toilets, cots, blankets, food items, veterinary supplies, and children's activity books, among others. The British Virgin Islands, the BVI, also sent relief supplies to SVG, and the ministers were on hand to accept the donations. Minister Caesar extended thanks to the government and people of the BVI for their love sent to SVG in its time of great need. He recalled his visit to the BVI in the aftermath of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, noting that it was really good to see the return of solidarity. The Minister of Tourism and Area Representative for North Leeward described the donations as a magnificent show of solidarity and support from the government and people of the BVI. Minister James expressed thanks to the Vincentians who are in Tortola, who came together to make the donation possible to their home country. Also, he thanked the government and people of the BVI for their contribution. 5 new COVID-19 positive cases were reported from 89 samples processed on Tuesday, resulting in a positivity rate of 5.6%. 1 new recovery was noted over the reporting period. 133 cases are currently active, with 11 persons having died from COVID-19. 1,855 cases of COVID-19 and 1,712 recoveries have been recorded in St. Vincent and the Grenadines since March 2020. The public is urged to continue to use masks, sanitize, physically distance, and get vaccinated to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in the country. Tomorrow, SVG will observe International Jazz Day 2021, which will be dedicated to the memory of national treasure Ellsworth Sheikh Keen. It is perhaps fitting that this celebration of jazz is being organized even as SVG continues to grapple with the aftermath of the ongoing eruptions of the La Soufrière volcano, which was the subject of a poem by the world-renowned flugelhorn player and poet. The event, which is being celebrated here for the third consecutive year, is being organized by the artist club SVG Inc. The main activities tomorrow will include a symposium, which will be carried on the International Jazz Day SVG Facebook page and other social media platforms, with the participation of musicians, intellectuals, and historians discussing the legacy of Sheikh Keen. This will run from 9 to 11 a.m. and will be moderated by journalist and host of the program Jazz Tropical, Dexter Rose. The second activity, which kicks off at 7 p.m., will be a celebratory concert under the direction of Cuban-born guitarist and music teacher at the Thomas Saunders Secondary School, Ray Escobar. The lineup features Vincentian singers Andy Cruikshank, Joey Paris, Hanifa Simon, Andres Bascom, Havlin Gill, Lancelot Da Vinci Chapman, and Brent Williams. A third event is carded for May 2nd, a concert offered by Epsilon Music Academy, which will feature students of that institution, which is directed by Zahili Sariol Ledlow.